Welcome to another DM Masterclass. Today we will be discussing dungeon crawlers, my favorite all-time genre. We have previously talked about what a boss battler is, and there it's all about the boss. Well, I am here to tell you that a dungeon crawler is literally all about location. And location can be a variety of things. It can be an underwater cave system, it can be a volcanic dungeon, it can be a derelict ship in outer space, it can be a cyberpunk network that you're cruising through. Anything can constitute an actual dungeon. What is more important to the definition is that it is a dungeon crawl. You are crawling through rooms in order to get to your destination. That can be an actual location that you have to find. It can be someone who is hiding in that location. It can be an event that should occur after a certain moment of time. There are many goals that could go along with a dungeon crawl, but central is always the discovery and exploration of the dungeon itself. Now, what can a dungeon hold in terms of occupants and in terms of objects? Well, it can hold a whole lot of things. It can hold treasure. It could hold items that you find useful in your current scenario that you're playing, or it can have a lot of enemies, mobs that are coming your way that you have to defeat. Now, that brings me to an interesting point, which is that a dungeon can be something that you have to explore in your own time and find the exact right amount of stuff in order to fulfill your goal. But it can also be that the exploration is not the point, is that you have to move through a dungeon as quickly as possible before the enemies bear down upon you or defeat you in the process. One of my all-time favorite dungeon crawlers, Descent, Journeys in the Dark, 2nd edition, is very much a timed exploration. So there's a little bit of exploration, there's a little bit of tasks, a variety of tasks that you need to do, varying from scenario to scenario. But there are always reinforcements that are just lurking around the corner, waiting to have the jump on you. And so as these reinforcements build up over time, you want to make sure that you are always progressing forwards and that you are always trying to achieve the goal that you need to achieve. Similarly, a game like Core Space or Maladum has the exact same mechanic where you are trying to go through this location, room by room, hallway by hallway, and you have a goal in mind. Usually in those games, it's looting for all's worth, because all the loot that you can get will make you stronger in future scenarios. But in the meantime, there are hordes of monsters that keep on flooding the area that you're in, and they make your exploration that much more difficult. So it's important not to hang around for very long in that dungeon. This raises another point where I find my favoritism leaning towards, and that is in the actual coziness of the exploration itself. Give me the time to actually go through a location and find everything there is to find. It's all about discovery for me personally. But that doesn't mean that there are no other games that do it differently. Zombicide, for instance, or Cthulhu Death May Die, they ramp up the timer aspect a lot, and to a point where it's not about the exploration at all. It's about getting in and getting out alive. That is, for those kind of games, the true definition of the dungeon crawler experience. Likewise, Shadows of Brimstone is also a system that ramps up more and more as you progress through the cave system or the mines that you are in. And it can always be very frustrating if you don't have the time to actually decently explore something. Agamonia, for instance, is a dungeon crawl campaign game where you have to explore various aspects and various parts of a location, but you rarely get the time to discover it all because, again, there's a timer going on, and if that timer reaches its end, you fail the mission. This is not technically my favorite way of doing a dungeon crawler. As I said, I would prefer to have a more cozy style of just taking my time and finding out everything that there is to find in a dungeon, truly like explore until I've snatched away every last cobweb on the wall, so to speak. But those are also dungeon crawlers in their own right.
Not all dungeons are made beforehand. Some dungeons need to be made when you are exploring it on the go. These are procedural dungeon generators as opposed to pre-made layouts that you get from scripted or plotted adventures. Now, the spawning of monsters can also be generated on the spot, as the events and the locations and even anything else like treasure or loot can all be generated by the use of cards and flipping tiles and randomly generating things on tables, so your dungeon becomes a work of art in the moment.
Now this brings another angle to the conversation of a dungeon crawler, and that is the one-offs compared to the campaign style of dungeon crawler. The one-off type of dungeon crawler typically falls back into that description of enemies flood the scene, you have to get in and out as fast as possible. You have a good night with your friends on a Friday night, you have drinks, you have snacks, and it is all about the rush of heading into a dungeon, and it becomes more of a dungeon run than a dungeon crawl. Then you have the second type that is truly a dungeon crawl, where you take your time because you know that everything that you might gain from a dungeon you will use in future dungeons inside the campaign. There is a longer progress to go through than just the one scenario that you're going on that specific session. So now we've explored two types of dungeon crawlers, one where it is about the exploration and discovery within a location and all of its rooms and hallways, etc. And the second one where it's more about the enemies who are coming towards you, forming a sort of timer for you to get in and out as fast as possible, achieving your objectives that you need to achieve in a dungeon crawler. But what makes a dungeon crawler now truly unique over an overland exploration adventure game or a boss battler adventure game? Not going too deeply into what an overland exploration game truly is or a boss battler adventure game, there's different videos for that. All I can say is that whereas a boss battler is more about the singular antagonist of the scenario itself, and an overland exploration is more about the freedom to explore whatever and wherever you want to go, the autonomy that you have as a character. A dungeon crawler is in a unique situation where it is truly all about the location. Whether or not there is a timer involved, whether or not the location is merely a playground for enemies to flood the scene and make your life more difficult, or it is a truly fully fleshed out area with a history, a background, with objectives and side quests that you can do, it is still about the location and maneuvering around tactfully and tactically on it before you reach your goal or you fail the goal. Dungeon crawlers are not just standalone dungeons. They have things that happen before and after. Typically, in most dungeon crawlers, you have a phase where you can buy new gear with the loot and the gold that you gained inside of a dungeon. You can maybe craft items, or you can improve your character with skills that they might need in future dungeons that are much more difficult to reach the goal of. And there could be dungeon crawls that overlap slightly more into the boss battler genre, or even backwards into the overland exploration genre, where you have to traverse the land a little bit before you get to the dungeon, or you have to meet a final boss at the end of several sessions of dungeon crawls, and this boss is very hard to defeat. So there is some overlap there. Mind you, the focus is always on the location, the dungeon itself, and whether that is a single-off standalone session of a dungeon crawl or it is a campaign, it is always and forever about the location. Dungeon crawlers are my favorite subgenre of adventure games, and I have many dungeon crawlers on my shelves, but rest assured, whatever game you play, just keep exploring. Okay, testing. Dungeon crawlers. My glasses. Welcome to another Dungeon Master. Nope, not Dungeon Master. Still not Dungeon Master. The location that needs to be discovered, that could be a mysterious actual dungeon, it could be a derelict spaceship, it could be a cave system, an underwater cave system, volcanic cave system. Those are a lot of caves. But key to the whole dungeon crawler experiment, I lost my train of thought. As long as you keep exploring, that game is good.